Nancy.
Where are we going?
Swimming.
I started doing stunt work, and I specialized in water, so a lot of times when the water stunts would come up, I got into doing the water stunts also. Steven Spielberg was a little bit leery having me because I wasn't an actress per se. After the first day of shooting, we did the beach scene the first day, the party scene at night, and we got along wonderful after that. So whatever I did, he liked, and it was great. He was a great person to work for.
Come on in the water!
I thought that what could really be scary was not seeing the shark and just seeing the water, because we all are familiar with the water. Very few of us have been in the water with a shark. But we've all gone swimming. And the idea of this girl going swimming and the audience going swimming with her would have been too extraordinary if, like a leviathan, the shark had come out of the water with its jaws agape and come down on her, and it would have been a spectacular opening for the film, but there would have been nothing primal about it. It would just have been a monster moment that we've all seen. And I really wanted to do it without seeing the shark in that case, and I wanted the violent jerking motions to just start to trigger our imaginations into either thinking about what's happening below the surface of the waterline or blocking what was happening below the surface.
The first jerk down, Steven did. He had a cable that came to the front of my stomach and went to an anchor that was laying on the bottom of the ocean. And then he just sat, and when he wanted that pull, he just would pull. And I could feel him pulling down, and I just throw my head back even more. They wanted to put me on an electric winch, and I prefer not to use an electric winch, because if any of the line overrode and came to a stop, I might not know it, and I might not be able to get out of it. And being they're pulling me back and forth in the water, I wanted to have more control, so we used manpower. They put cut-off Levi's on and had cables running from me out to the side to two pilings, and then all the way into the beach. And what they would do is we put marks on the beach, and the guys, we'd have 5 or 6 guys on each line, and they would run back and forth from mark to mark. So I didn't have the hard work to do. I just kind of sat there and got pulled around. The guys were running back and forth on the beach. And that's what made my body move back and forth in the frame. And then when I would feel my hips getting pulled the opposite way, I'd just throw my arms out of water very violently the opposite way. So physically, I could make it look more violent than what it was. I went to a marine store and bought like a safety hook that you'd use on a sail, on the halyard of a sail. And I put it onto all the cables that they hooked to me, so that at any time during the scene, if I got in trouble, if I got water, if I got hurt, God knows what happened, I could pull one of those strings and I was free and clear and could come to the surface. So what it was it allowed me, if I got in a spot, to free myself. Because how would anybody know if I was hurt or I needed anything? I'm out there screaming like a fool. We looped the film. Of course, a lot of the stuff we couldn't do because of the noise made, so you go into a looping studio. And the idea was, how are you going to sound like you're in the water sitting in a studio? So we came up with the idea of getting a baby bassinet and filling it with water. So I'm sitting on the sound stage, with the film up on the screen, on a stool with my little bassinet. And Richard Dreyfuss came in.
Well, I came to visit Steven, or I came to do my own looping. I'm not really sure now. It was so long ago. And I walked in, and Steven had this beautiful girl's blonde head reared back like this, and he was pouring water down her throat like this. I'm telling her to scream her bloody lungs out, which I thought was a rather interesting way to spend the afternoon, but not particularly comfortable for her. But it does work for the movie. I mean, the reason they were doing it was to make the appropriate sound, and they couldn't do it any other way, so he just poured that water down her throat.
Oh, Jesus. Well, the problem was they brought the hand to me, and they said, here's the dead girl's hand. And I said, wow, it looks like shiny plastic. It looks fake. And they said, well, you know, after a body's been decomposing for a day on the sand with the sun coming down, that it sort of takes on that look. I said, well, you might be clinically right, you know, and a pathologist might certainly look at that and admire that moment in Jaws. But to me, as an audience member, it looks fake. It looks like plastic. And we tried to powder it. I remember putting powder on it to get the reflective shine off it. We couldn't do that. So I just sort of said, well, screw it. And I believe I turned to someone and said, let me use your arm. And I, kind of like we do when we're kids, we bury our parents in the sand. I kind of buried her in the sand and just had her hand sticking out. And we made up part of the arm so it seemed right up here, it looked like it had been bitten off in a kind of a subtle way. And then there were these little sand crabs that we had collected and put all over the arm, and they were kind of lethargic in their movements. To this day when I see Jaws, I always have this different vision of 10 times as many crabs moving 10 times as fast, trying to feed on the arm. And I later was able to do that in a Temple of Doom, when I was able to get the bugs to do what the crabs couldn't do, 15 years earlier. The death of the Kintner boy and all the paranoia and the tension and the suspense leading up to the actual attack when he's out on the raft, I, in my mind, wanted to do in one shot. And in trying to figure out, in a perfect world, how could I have done that in one sustained shot? I came up with the idea to have bathers with different colored bathing suits walking in front of the camera that would wipe off Roy Scheider, and the same color in the reverse, moving in certainly the other direction, would wipe on what he's looking at, which, even though it wouldn't be one shot, would give more of a seamless feeling and much more of a clear point of view, that you knew who was looking at who, that all this must be from the police chief's point of view. The scene's about him. It's about his reaction. It's not about the Kintner boy being killed. It's about the chief of police, his fear of the water, his chief responsibility to protect the public, his fear that there is a shark out there, and he knows it's out there, and these people are going swimming anyway.
Did you see that?
This guy here trying to knock me down $100 a day.
Hello.
Hello, Beck, young feller. How are you?
Craig Kingsbury was a local on Martha's Vineyard, and he was quite a character. He himself was a movie and a book. And, had I not gotten Robert Shaw and had I met him in an open casting call, I might have come very close to flirting with the idea of using him to play Quint, because he was the purest version of who, in my mind, Quint really was. And when I met him, he just came up with this great dialogue, and I kind of kept increasing his part. And just by meeting him, I said, I want you to be in my movie, and you can make up your own dialogue. And he made up all that stuff when he's in the boat, and he says, you're going to wish your mothers never met their fathers when you start, piling into those reefs, boy.
When we get them silly bastards down in that rock pile, there'll be some fun. They'll wish their fathers had never met their mothers when they start taking their bottoms out and slamming into them rocks, boy.
There's no shortage of drunks on the island. Craig Kingsbury had the distinction of being the only guy who was driving under the influence a team of oxen and was loaded and smashed and driving these cows around.
Just in talking about fishing and sharking and this and that, Craig gave me some great lines. And, one of the lines was, it's not like going out there to get a great right. It's not like going out there to catch bluegills or tomicods. That's Craig's line.
I'll catch this bird for you, but it ain't gonna be easy. Bad fish. Not like going down the pond chasing bluegills or tomicods. This shark, swallow you whole.
Craig Kingsbury, because he played Ben Gardner, got to have his head life cast for the mold for the severed head that appears in the film.
I was going to be a victim in the estuary. I'm in a boat, in a little rowboat, and the way they shot it the first time, where I'm in the shark's mouth with a blood pack in my mouth. I'm going on top of water, underwater, on top of spitting blood out, and I'm trying to make a lot of movement, but it was very awkward the way this seat was, and I was trying to make a lot of movement like I was in the shark's mouth, going underwater, on top of water. And then I see Roy's son staring at me, and as a last-ditch effort, the shark is heading right towards him, and I just make a move to grab him, and I let him I think I just touched him, and I let him go, and then I go underwater and disappear. Well, what happened in that scene is, it was so violent and so horrendous that they couldn't use it. It was just too violent, period. And I was in this little bucket seat strapped into it, and the shark fin was behind me on a sled. I had the kid in my arms, and I was going to take him underwater, and then I let him go, and then the sled went underwater.
Teddy Grossman is in the jaws of the shark. The shark's underwater, and Teddy, like the maidenhead on a ship, is traveling toward this kid, vomiting blood. That's much more horrible than what I had done, in the first third of Jaws. And I just didn't like it. It was too bloody, and I thought it was in bad taste, so I cut it out.
Come on, Chief. This isn't no Boy Scout picnic. See, you got your rubbers.
I asked Robert to give Lorraine a hard time inside the scene because he's really sort of putting down Chief Brody. He thinks Chief Brody's a sissy, and he's putting down the fact he's all in rubber. He says, "You're glad you brought your rubbers, Chief," and he's always doing this to everybody. To Brody's character and to Brody and to Hooper. And so I asked him to chide Lorraine, and in the middle of the scene, he made up this little poem that went, there was a woman named Mary who lost her virginity, not a bad record for this vicinity, whatever it was. And when it was all over, I said, you got to help me clear this. If that's from a song, we just can't use that without paying for the rights. He said, no, I don't think we'll be sued because I got it from a tombstone in Ireland. And that's where he found that little ditty.
Here lies the body of Mary Lee. Died at the age of 103. For 15 years, she kept her virginity. Not a bad record for this vicinity. If they don't like you going out, they'll love you coming in.
For Jaws, I wanted the color red to be the blood and not to be a bandana around someone's neck or a plaid overshirt or the letters on a boat. The only red I wanted in the movie was blood, and I told the production designer, Joe Alves, at the very beginning, to please, when you're designing the picture and you're finding your colors, don't find red, just allow red to be the blood. And in a sense, I think we pretty much stuck to that. I think that's what happened. We did have red wine, but there's a bit of a symbol, it's a bit symbolic.
Keep that chum line going, Chief. We got 5 good miles on him.
When the shooting started at sea, the production got a lot more difficult. That's when they started worrying about wind and weather, when they could spend a day on the ocean and get 6 seconds of usable film because of boats on the horizon, because of malfunctioning shark.
The problems of shooting at sea are enormous because the wind, the waves, everything is moving, and nothing stays the same for more than 50, 60 seconds.
I would set up a shot, and I'd get my camera all set, and all of a sudden the electrical barge would start drifting in a tide that was moving this way, and the camera barge would start drifting this way, and the orca would start moving around on its 2 anchors. And before you knew it, we were all out of position. It took another hour and a half to re-anchor and get set again. And just as we got set, sailboats from a regatta would come in.
You're shooting towards the horizon, right? And the camera has got the horizon. Boop. Then all of a sudden we would see a little sail. And as soon as that sail was in shot, we had to stop and wait till it went all the way across here, which took an hour and a half. And hope that at the end of that hour and a half, another one didn't come. So we were always like, as the sailing ship went off, we were going like, Ready? Speed? Action! No, there's another one! Oh, God damn it. We were always, I mean, that put 3 hours a day onto our schedule.
And I'd sit there saying, okay, do I wait here for an hour for the regatta to pass, or do we turn 18 to 25 anchors, move everything to look in this direction? And we used to do calculations and say, it'll take an hour for the regatta to get from here to here, and an hour and 10 minutes to get all your anchors and look back this way. Let's wait for the sailboats to move out of the shot. And it just was frustrating for all of us.